them to make that decision.
Let's take another question from the audience here. Go ahead, please. What's your name?
Suzanne Bass. I'm an attorney in Jacksonville. Welcome to the great city of Jacksonville. My question, how would your religious beliefs, if you're elected, impact the decisions that you make in the office of the presidency?
Congressman Paul?
Well, my religious beliefs wouldn't affect it. My religious beliefs affects my character and the way I treat people and the way I live. The only thing that would affect... The only thing that would affect me in the way I operate as a president or a congressman is my oath of office and my promises that I've made to the people.
Governor?
Ron Paul makes very good points. I concur with that. I would also seek the guidance of Providence in making critical decisions. And of course, ours is a nation which is based upon Judeo-Christian values and ethics. Our law is based upon those values and ethics. And in some cases, our law doesn't encompass all of the issues that we face around the world. The conviction that the founders, when they wrote the Declaration of Independence, were writing a document that was not just temporary and not just for one small locale, but really something which described the relationship between God and man. That's something which I think a president would carry in his heart. So when they said, for instance, that the Creator had endowed us with certain unalienable rights, among them life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, I would seek to assure that those principles and values remain in America and that we help share them with other people in the world, not by conquering them, but by helping them through our trade, through our various forms of soft power, to help bring people the joy and opportunity that exists in this great land.
Mr. Speaker.
I would say that there are three ways in which religion would affect me. The first is, I agree with Governor Romney. I think anyone who's president is faced with decisions so enormous that they should go to God. They should seek guidance, because these are decisions beyond the ability of mere mortals to truly decide without some sense of what it is we should be doing. I would say, second, that we have a real obligation to recognize that if you're truly faithful, it's not just an hour on Sundays or Saturdays or Fridays. It's, in fact, something that should suffuse your life, should be a part of who you are. And in that sense, it is inextricably tied in with how you behave. But I would say, third, one of the reasons I'm running is there has been an increasingly aggressive war against religion, and in particular against Christianity in this country, largely by a secular elite in the academic, news, media, and judicial areas. And I frankly believe it's important to have some leadership that stands up and says enough. We are truly guaranteed the right of religious freedom, not religious oppression by the state.
Senator? Faith is a very, very important part of my life, but it's a very, very important part of this country. The foundational documents of our country. Everybody talks about the Constitution, very, very important, but the Constitution is the how of America. It's the operator's manual. The why of America, who we are as a people, is in the Declaration of Independence. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal and endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. The Constitution is there to do one thing: protect God-given rights. That's what makes America different than every other country in the world. No other country in the world has its rights based in God-given rights, not government-given rights. And so when you say, well, faith has nothing to do with it, faith has everything to do with it. If rights come... If our president believes that rights come to us from the state, everything government gives you, it can take away. The role of the government is to protect rights that cannot be taken away. And so the answer to that question is, I believe in faith and reason and approaching the problems of this country, but understand where those rights come from, who we are as Americans, and the foundational principles by which we have changed the world.
Thank you, Senator. We have one more break to take, but we have a lot more to discuss. Don't go too far away. Coming up, the final debate question: before Florida votes. We're the last few minutes of the last question to these four presidential candidates before the Florida primary on Tuesday in this debate format. Here's the question, and it involves the President of the United States. I want you to tell voters who are watching or are here on this campus right now why you are the one person on this stage that is most likely to beat Barack Obama. Congressman.
Well, you know, so far we have some pretty good evidence that I'll do quite well and have a better chance than the rest to beat him, because if you do a national poll, I do very, very well against Obama. But one of the reasons is that the freedom message in the Constitution is very appealing to everybody in all political beliefs, because it includes free markets, which conservatives endorse, but it also protects civil liberties, the way people run their lives. If it is a God-given life and it's your life, you should have the right to run your life as you so choose, as long as you don't hurt other people. This means a lot more tolerance than some would like to give. So that brings people in who are concerned about civil liberties, and all of a sudden, my position undermines Obama completely and totally, because the foreign policy is different. He promises to end the wars, but the wars expand. A constitutional foreign policy will end the wars, and if you want somebody to talk about peace and prosperity, it has to be somebody who understands money and a foreign policy and free markets.
Governor Romney, why are you the one person on this stage most likely to beat President Obama?
The people of America recognize that this is a critical time. This is not just an average election. This is a time when we're going to decide whether America will remain the great hope of the 21st century, whether this will be an American century, or instead whether we'll continue to go down a path to become more and more like Europe, a social welfare state. That's where we're headed. Our economy is becoming weaker. The foundation of our future economy is being eroded. Government has become too large. We're headed in a very dangerous direction. I believe to get America back on track, we're going to have dramatic, fundamental, extraordinary change in Washington to be able to allow our private sector to once again reemerge competitively, to scale back the size of government, and to maintain our strength abroad in our military capacities. I believe that to change Washington in such a dramatic way, you cannot do it by people who've been there their entire careers. I believe if you just elect the same people to change chairs in Washington, not much will happen. I think if you want to change Washington, you're going to have to bring someone in who's been on the outside. I have lived in the private sector. I know how it works. I've competed with businesses around the world. I know how to win. I know what it takes to keep America strong. I know how to work in government. I've had experience for 4 years, working as the governor of Massachusetts. I will use the experience of my life to get America right, and I will be able to convince the American people that someone with my experience is very different than Barack Obama, and that experience is how I'll beat him.
Mr. Speaker, why are you the one person on this stage most likely to beat President Obama?
You know, I've participated in the two largest Republican sweeps in modern times. 1980 in the Reagan campaign, in 1994 with the Contract with America, which had the largest one-party increase in American history, 9 million extra votes. I believe that what we need this fall is a big choice election that goes to the heart of who we are. I'm running more than anything for my two grandchildren, Maggie and Robert. I'd like them to be able to look back 50 years from now and say that what we did, what we the American people did, the choice we made in 2012 to unleash the American people, to rebuild our country based on the core values, to pose for the American people a simple choice. Do you want freedom and independence and a paycheck and a job, or do you want dependence and big government and food stamps and a lack of future? And I believe if we have a big election with truly historic big choices, that we can defeat Barack Obama by a huge margin, but it won't be by running just as a Republican. It will be an American campaign open to every American who prefers a paycheck to food stamps, who prefers the Declaration of Independence to Saul Alinsky, and who prefers a strong national security to trying to appease our enemies.
Senator, I'll repeat the question for you. Why do you think you're the best most qualified person on this stage to beat President Obama.
I agree with the previous two speakers that this is a big election. This is an election about fundamental freedom. It's an election about who America is going to be. We're a country that's going to be built great from the bottom up, as our founders intended, or from the top down. I just think I'm a lot better than the previous two speakers to be able to make that case to the American public. I'm not for a top-down government-run healthcare system. I wasn't for the Wall Street bailouts like these two gentlemen were. Governor Romney talks about private sector and how he's going to bring private sector. When the private sector was in trouble, he voted for government to come in and take over the private sector and be able to and to bail them out. Cap and trade, both of them bought into the global warming hoax, bought into the cap and trade, top-down control of our energy and manufacturing sector. If you look at President Obama's speech the other night, what did he lead with? He led with manufacturing. He led with manufacturing. Why? Because the base of his party, the ones that are always the ones that, not the base, the swing vote in his party, the ones that Ronald Reagan was able to get. We call them Reagan Democrats up in Pennsylvania. Those are the blue-collar working people of America who know that this president has left them behind. He has a plan for them, and it's more dependency, not work, not opportunity. So he went out and tried to make a play for manufacturing. That's been the center point of my campaign. The center point of my campaign is to be able to win the industrial heartland, get those Reagan Democrats back, talking about manufacturing, talking about building that ladder of success all the way down so people can climb all the way up. That's why I'm the best person to be able to go out and win the states that are necessary to win this presidency and govern with the mandate that Newt just talked about.
Thank you, Senator, and thank you to the four presidential candidates. Also want to thank our partners in this debate, the Republican Party of Florida, the Hispanic Leadership Network. Thank you very much to them. We'd also like to thank our hosts here on the campus of the University of North Florida in Jacksonville. Be sure to join us Tuesday night. Our coverage begins 6 p.m. Eastern, live coverage of the Florida primary. Our coverage of America's Choice 2012 continues right now.
Well, thanks very much. Good evening, everyone. It is 10 p.m. here on the East Coast. For those of you just tuning in, welcome to a special edition of 360 Live from the University of North Florida in Jacksonville, where the four remaining Republican presidential candidates have just wrapped up their debate. Two of them, Newt Gingrich and Mitt Romney, traded verbal punches all night. Governor Romney has a new debate coach. Did it make a difference? You can decide for yourself in the hour ahead.